Let me explain the format for tonight. Each candidate for the Unified Commission in alphabetical order will have 3 minutes for opening introductory remarks. Then the panelists will then ask questions of the candidate starting in reverse alphabetical order. Each candidate will have an opportunity to respond to each of the panelists' questions. The remarks will be for only 2 minutes. Candidates are urged to stick to the issues. This is not a debate. So we will start out with opening remarks from Brad Isnard. Brad?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. First off, I'd like to thank everyone in attendance tonight for taking the time out of their busy schedules to come and learn more about the candidates and the issues that we face as a community. A little bit about myself. My name is Brad Isnard. I'm running for an opportunity to represent District 8 as your commissioner. I've lived in Kansas my entire life, and I attended the University of Kansas and WGU, Missouri, where I earned a bachelor's in business administration. Over the past 15 years, I've specialized in turning around large format businesses that were struggling, so I'm no stranger to a challenge. I'm a third generation public servant. Growing up, my grandfather was a state trooper, which gave me a deep appreciation and respect for the sacrifice that our first responders make for us every day. My father was a teacher for 30 years, which helped me understand the importance of education and the impact it can have on a community. And I now have the pleasure of serving this community in a different way. I work for you now as the Assistant Director of Finance for USD 500. My time serving in your school district has been one of the most fulfilling and transformative experiences in my life. It's given so much purpose and drive to my life, as everything we do is for the betterment of our children and our future. I'm not running because I'm mad about any one issue or any one candidate. I believe everyone who chooses to make public service their life and their passion ultimately has good intentions, although we may disagree on the steps needed to get there. But we all want a better life and future for ourselves, our families, and our communities. I don't have any political alliances or preconceived notions. I don't owe any political favors, and I don't have a business to profit from. I have a great job already serving this community, and I simply want to continue to make a difference in a different and larger way. I don't attend the mayor's church, and I wouldn't be a rubber stamp for his agenda, nor would I vote against a project he supported if I thought it was the best thing for the community. I'm an outsider who owes nothing to anyone but the citizens of my district and the community as a whole. I support expanding economic development in our city to all regions, not just the West, but I also know it's going to take hard work to get there. I embrace that challenge. I support expanding the partnership between the unified government and the school districts within and KCKCC to ensure our children are prepared for real middle-class jobs right here in Wyandotte County so that they can have a better life than we had. I support respecting, supporting, and protecting those who put their lives on the line to protect us. I support using the sales tax revenue from the Legends and Village West to reinvest in our communities so they too can prosper. This means two things. First, we must continue to responsibly lower our tax burden so the residents can afford to invest in themselves. Secondly, we must commit to improving living conditions, solve our expanding problem of blight and abandoned property in our city. Thank you for your time this evening. I'm not just asking for your vote, I'm asking for your trust. Together we can make Wyandotte County a better place to live, work, and raise a family for everyone.
Kenan McLean.
Like you said, my name is Kenan McLean. I've born and raised in Wyandotte County, came from a little part of town called Parkwood off of 10th and Quindaro, officially known as the inner city. Growing up in the inner city, I've seen a lot of challenges, faced a lot of challenges. So when I say I've seen things firsthand, I've lived them firsthand. My wife and I, by this time next year, will have been married for 15 years. We're raising 3 children. They are all products of USD 500. We are very proud of that. While we're proud to have them in USD 500, we do see room for improvement in USD 500. So in that regard, we like to serve our community through our schools. My wife being involved in the PTA, I assist her whenever I can, and sometimes I'm affectionately known as Tamika's husband, and I'm okay with that. With our campaign, we're focusing on 3 things. We're focusing on health financially, health physically, and health socially. Our financial health revolves around the wasteful spending, how we need to reevaluate what's being overpaid for and what needs to be reinforced or restored in funding as well. None of our firehouses are up to code in our district. How could the people take care of us if we're not taking care of them? I believe that we should be able to create a clear path for our small business entrepreneurs. There should be a roadmap that gets them from point A all the way through Z with no roadblocks or surprises, so that we can truly foster an entrepreneurial environment and keep jobs, homegrown jobs, here in Wyandotte County. With our health aspect, physically, we rank last in almost every single category there is. And with the growing lead risk that we have in our county, if we don't do something fast, we won't be here long enough to do anything about it. Our social health, crime, blight, abandoned properties, everything, we need to get back to being neighbors again. We have an absentee landlord problem. We need to give priority to our local entrepreneurs, our local real estate developers that want to bring about the changes that they want to see in their own neighborhoods. I think they can better tell us about the neighborhoods they want to see versus someone that lives 2,000 miles away and only has a P.O. box. With also our social health aspect, we see that our criminals are getting a lot younger. What are we doing for our youth? What are we doing through our school system for our youth? We hear about the Diploma Plus program, which is great, but how great is that program if a lot of our students are not graduating from high school? So with that being said, we are ready to get to work from day one. We've already been getting to work in our communities in different aspects with different organizations. So on August 1st, remember Kendall McLean. Remember, I will work right alongside with you.
Thank you. Commissioner Philbrook.
Well, I want to thank you also for taking time out of your busy day and evening to be here with us and to cheer us on in working for your community. I also want to thank the Community College and Business West for putting this on, because it is important that we have these sort of dialogues so folks can find out what we're all about. To tell you about myself, I'm a fourth generation optometrist, and although I wasn't born here, it didn't take them long to get me back over here from KCMO, okay? So, and I've been here ever since. And let's see, I worked for the city for about 1.5 years. So I've worked for the city before. I've worked for BPU for about 8 years, and I worked down at the power plant when I did that, and in the water plant. Is what they call a man's job, and we'll just fly right past that. And then with that, I would tell you that although I grew up in a family that had their own businesses, when I worked for BPU, I saw a need for help for our operators, and so I did help bring in the union to help us make sure we were taken care of so we weren't ran over. And so I'm really proud of that. I nearly lost my job for it, but it was worth it. Other things, our community, this is one of the best times in my life that I just love doing this job, and I love working with people. And I agree with these two gentlemen on my left. We still have a whole lot of work to do, but it does take all of us together, and it takes our communities and all of our community groups to make a difference. Without our community groups, we are not Wyandotte County, and I want to thank everybody for doing that. I would appreciate your vote if you want me to work longer for you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Now we'll move to the questions, and Edgar Galicius will ask the questions, and we'll start with Commissioner Philbrook.
Thank you. Just what is the state of the community amenities and services in your district, and what will you do to turn them around for the better?
Well, the state, I'm lucky. We have some really good things, but we're just like everybody else. We have the bad. I have probably the widest variety of issues in the community, because we have everything from the blight that he was talking about all the way to some really beautiful, nice homes. And we have a whole lot of activity going on now that'll make a big difference, and that is bring more jobs. We have, there was a comment made earlier that our jobs were only going to be, the new ones coming in from Amazon will only be 12 an hour. No, we put the pressure on them. It will now be 13 an hour, and that 40% of their of their income will be coming from benefits because they get benefits starting the first day. I'm really proud of the extra negotiations we did. We need plenty of jobs. We need plenty of nice rooftops. We already have 2 programs, 42 housing, if anybody understands that. It's a tiered type housing that will be exactly not too far. It'd be right off 65th Street, both of those. I'm really proud of that, and we're working on some other help along that line. I don't, you know, all I can do is work with everybody else and help encourage our hard workers down at City Hall just to do the best job they can and help give them direction. And that's what my job is, to listen to my folks and to give direction to City Hall.
Ken McLean.
Repeat the question, please.
Yes, sir. What is the state of the community amenities and services in your district, and what will you do to turn them around for the better?
The state of our community in District 8, it just depends on where you're at. If you go down to 38th Street, 38th and State, you see a few more potholes. You see a few more weeds. You see a few more buildings that could be in better shape. Specifically, that shopping mall at 38th and State. That may not be in our district, but still, its neighbors our district. But let's say you go out a little bit west. You go to Price Chopper. Let's say you go to some of the other areas. Some of them are in a little better shape. So we have not only a diversity in people, but we also have a diversity in the application of those services. So when we're talking about how the mayor's SOAR program, let's tear that thing open. Do we really know how the SOAR program is being applied? What are the qualifications for it? What are the stipulations? What is the turnaround time? What are our measurables to see if we're even making progress on those things? We were just awarded a $1.3 or $1.65 million grant for lead reduction in homes. What do we know about how that program is going to be applied over the next 3 years? How are we working with our people? How are we working with our citizens and with our neighbors to say, hey, this is how you get on that program, how you get on that list? Because once a child has lead disease or lead poisoning, the effects are hard to reverse. What we would like to do to remedy that is what we always do, is through education, through transparency, through clarity. We help those that need help. We help those that want to take the steps and put in the effort. And like I said, I'm right on 67th and Greeley. I'm a block away from my children's school. We see some kids that don't have backpacks, some kids that don't have shoes that fit. How are we connecting those kids and those families with the resources? As a city, we should be working for our neighbors, for our citizens, because that's who pays us.
Brad Isnard.
Thank you. The community services and amenities that we have, as Mr. McLean said, it certainly depends on which region of our district you're in. We have one of the most diverse districts in the city, and that is because we, being centrally located, have pieces of all districts as a part of us. I'm very proud of the new park and water park, ball fields that are at the Eisenhower Rec Center. It's a beautiful area to take the family. But beyond that, I see a lot of work to still be done. As far as services, our fire station, just over at, I believe it's 81st and Leavenworth Road, let's just say it's an antique and not a very well kept one. We've got work to do to take care of those guys. Further south in our district, there's been a lot of talk lately about what we need to do with the Indian Springs land, how we're going to get development to want to go in there. I question how we're ever going to get any business to willingly build on the Indian Springs land when we've got a condemned hotel a block away with pink sheets on every single door. That's not going to attract the type of business that we want without bribing them with tax breaks, abatements, and other investment money. I would like to see more investment in our community, starting with taking care of the blight and abandoned property in our district. And the SOAR program Mr. McLean referenced is sorely, pardon the pun, underfunded and behind schedule, according to the very report from the city staff in the meeting last week. Thank you.
The next questions will come from Elnora Jefferson, and we'll start with Brad Isnard.
Good evening. Progressive government is defined as favoring or advocating progress, change, improvement, or reform, as opposed to wishing to maintain things as they are, especially in political matters. Is this something that you see relevant for District 8? And if you do, what ideas do you have to implement this in District 8?
That's a great question. One of the biggest places that we can make an impact in both our district and the city as a whole is in helping our young people be better prepared for the middle class jobs that are in demand, both in our county now and in the future. If you want to bring in business development, we're talking tech startups, other businesses like Cerner, the best way to do that is going to be to have a surplus of very qualified workers. Now, working for USD 500, I have the pleasure of being a part of a program called Diploma Plus, where we are working diligently to make sure that every student will graduate with more than just a diploma, either an industry certification, a year's worth of college credits already completed, specific training in a field so that they are ready for employment when they graduate. All of those things are incredibly important because, as we know, a high school diploma alone is not enough anymore. We have got to work better as the city with our school districts, not just USD 500, but Turner and Piper and the community college, to make sure that those types of investments are being made in all of our children so that we are ready to be successful in the 21st century and beyond. Thank you.
Kennedy McLean.
Read the question, please. It was kind of a two-part, I believe.
You want the definition as well?
Yeah, no, not the definition, just the question,
Okay,
please.
all right. Is progressive government something that you see relevant for District 8? And if you do, what ideas do you have to implement that in District 8?
Sure. Okay. The definition of insanity is when you do the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. If we elect the same kinds of people over and over again and expect different results, that would define insanity. So progressive government would mean we change the way we do things soundly. We change how we spend our dollars in a sound fashion. Are we really reducing property taxes, or are we putting 6 in one hand or a half dozen in the other? Progressive government would mean transparency, would mean that we speak to our neighbors in more forms than just a PL-2560 and expect you to know what that means when you drive past a little white road sign. Progressive government means that we have regular meetings, monthly, bi-monthly. That means that I'm going to put the information out there so that you can no longer say you do not know what's going on in your community. And anybody that wants to drink from that fountain, it's there for them to get that knowledge. Progressive government means that we step into the 21st century, that we improve our websites from our own unified government. If you've ever been on the unified government website, I think my cell phone browser works a lot better than that unified government website. We should be able to find things easily on our government websites. The answers that we need from our city leaders should be easy to find, not hidden in a bunch of legal speak and in a bunch of dashes and dots. Even though we are dots, we deserve better than those dashes and dots. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Philbrook.
Well, progressive. I would tell you that since I've been living here all my life, that it's been spurts. Sometimes we've been progressive and really took the bull by the horns, and sometimes we've just kind of coasted. And the last 4 years, I know that we've been very progressive because we have done more work and had more meetings in the last 4 years trying to figure out how to turn things around than I think they have in the last 10 years. And that's including all of the commissioners. Everybody's been diving in there to try to figure out how we turn all these things around, the problems we've been having. I call that progressive. I also want to say that along with that, that we have been working, we meaning there's been several of us on the commission and within the community, and that includes the school districts, the colleges, and other people on workforce development. We've been brought together a really good group of people, and we're addressing that right now. That started about 3 years ago, and in that is workforce partnership, economic development, people across the state line. We are really working this hard, and I'd appreciate anybody who wants to be part of this to please call me, let me know, be part of that. Leavenworth Road has been in dire need of a major it's our last east-west corridor, and that's called progress for Leavenworth Road. We have to do something with that road so we can develop along that road. That's just one of the many things. When you've been working this long, seems like 4 years has been 10, but what I'm going to tell you is there's a lot of progress that happened so far, a lot.
Now we'll turn to Mary Rupert, who will ask the next question, and we'll start with Commissioner Philbrook.
Okay, here's a two-part question, and I know you just started to talk about it just now, and Brad has also talked about part of it too. I'm interested in finding out your opinion about the proposed Leavenworth Road improvements, especially the underground utilities, and also what is your current position about what sort of development should go in at Indian Springs?
Well, since I don't get to make the decision by myself, I'm going to hit Indian Springs first. I don't make that decision by myself. That's a community decision, and we've started that conversation, and there will be another conversation around what happens at Indian Springs. I want Indian Springs to be something that we hadn't even thought about having before. It's not going to be another Zona Rosa, I can tell you that. But hopefully it will be something that is progressive and that has the local community involved in that. Now, the other part of Leavenworth Road thing. Leavenworth Road, the conversations have been going on a long time. Originally, the agreement was that the north side keep their lines, the south side as much as possible be underground, and then the lines across as much as possible disappear. To open that up, to give that a more open, pleasing appearance and make it look like we care about that road just like we do State Avenue and some of the other big roads that we have, the boulevards. We want to let people feel like they matter. And so hearing somebody say that Leavenworth Road doesn't count just hurts my heart, because that is not true. It's a very important road, and we need to take care of the people along those roads and dress things up so people will want to come and live here and build along there. And that's my answer to both those. Thank you.
Kenan McLean.
Sure. Indian Springs' short answer would be let it sit until we get it right. I don't believe that we should allow some company to develop it for $1.60 per square foot. That's $750,000 for maybe 23 acres worth of land. We should not really hitch our trailer to a horse that's already dead, and that will affect us for the rest of our future. Ideally, that site should bring in revenue. It should bring in true revenue, true growth, and that will attract other businesses there. Now, yes, it will be hard to get a developer to want to build there, but that's why we need to address some of the other cultural issues that are surrounding it. And until we get those other cultural issues right, then yes, that site should really sit there until we can decide and deserve better. If Lane 4 isn't getting the job done, let's open it up. Let's open it up to Block. Let's open it up to Red. Let's have open competition. Competition is what brings out the best in companies. Let's start there to see who brings us the best proposal. As far as Leavenworth Road goes, $9 million. $9 million to bury power lines. I think we can do a lot more for a lot less and make Leavenworth Road look a lot better with less than $9 million. Power lines don't get in my way, but I think we can add some parks along there for probably a whole lot less than $9 million. We can provide better curb attractions, better parking lots along those edges for a lot less than $9 million. Now, if I tell you and I pat you on the back and say, hey, I want to make you feel better by taking these power lines out of your way, you might look at me crazy. But if I say, hey, I want to use $9 million to improve your fire department, to improve your sewer lines, to help your other services work better for you, I can do that with some of that $9 million. Hopefully that will make you feel better because we're putting your tax dollars to work.
Brad Isnard.
As we've already spoken briefly about the Indian Springs land, I recall some investment advice that I was once given, and that was that when you buy a stock and it goes down, you haven't truly lost until you sell. And the deal that was proposed to sell that Indian Springs land to a developer for pennies on the dollar to me was dumping an investment that could raise in value. We've got to wait for the right deal at the right time. That land, that close to the highway, will be valuable in the future. We've just got to get that area ready for the development. That's where the plan, the SOAR initiative, has to be funded. It has to be a priority to get the community in that area ready for development so that when it comes in, we don't have to give crazy tax breaks. We don't have to give investment straight from taxpayers to loan money to help them build. We want businesses in that area, but we want businesses to come willingly because they know that they can be profitable. As for Leavenworth Road, I feel like I have a unique perspective on that because I live right off of Leavenworth Road. And I can tell you that it is in sore need of improvements, and I do support most of the proposals that I've heard. The burying of the power lines, the last figure that I had heard was $5 million. I believe that's correct. And although that does sound like a lot of money, right now the alternative is, like the storms that we had recently, we've got thousands and thousands of our citizens that are out of power every time a little storm blows through because we haven't made the investment to bury power lines like other cities. It's important and we need to do it. Thank you.
Okay. Now we'll turn to Edgar Galicius, who will ask a question, and we'll start with Brad Isnard.
Thank you. We have heard about challenges of today and vision for the future. Let's talk about personal skills, strengths, and abilities. I want to give you the opportunity to let us know what you bring to the table.
Absolutely, thank you. I think that my biggest asset for this position is an understanding of public finance that will help make better decisions for the public on the projects that are important and the projects that we can afford now versus ones that we should wait on. I don't believe that there's another candidate at the table that has experience managing directly a public budget over $350 million. That rivals the budget of the entire unified government. We actually employ more people than the unified government. My daily experience working through that will help make better decisions. Now, I don't want to get into a debate about board policies. I'm not a member of the Board of Education. I'm a public servant and I work for that board. However, the experience working through that is valuable. I'm also, as I stated in my initial remarks, a political outsider. I don't have any alliances or preconceived notions. I don't owe votes to another candidate because they voted for one of my programs or proposals. That is important to me so that you know that my only allegiance is to the voters of Wyandotte County and it's not swayed by an outside perspective. Thank you.
Ken McLean.
What I bring to the table is the same thing I bring every day that I wake up. It's a passion and a drive to do what's best for my family. We live in Wyandotte County because we want to live in Wyandotte County. I'm raising my family in Wyandotte County because I want my children to be just as proud of it as I am, and as I'll always be. I bring a good mix between boardroom and financial experience as well as community experience. With the company I work for, I'm in client services. I manage billion-dollar portfolios for companies far and wide. So we do have that experience as well. Also, with that same experience, we're able to communicate things much better for our community members to understand. With our neighborhood experiences, we have fed apartment complexes. We have provided backpacks, food. We have done free services from our own businesses, from our other community partners, to make life a little bit better and to restore pride with some families. Because just because you may live in an area that has some blight, it doesn't mean that you don't deserve better. You might be poor, but that doesn't make you poor in spirit. That is what we're all about. We're all about ensuring that everyone gets their fair shake. We're here to get our seat at the table, not just for us, but for every single neighbor in our district. And the last thing I'll say is this: this isn't about a position for me. It's not about how much money we can make, not about how much money I manage. This is about purpose. What is your purpose for doing the job that we do? Is it about the people, or is it about the businesses? Or is it about the businesses that can serve the people? Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner?
Well, which thing do I start with first? So I do own a small business, and I've been part of small business since I was growing up. Grew up around that sort of thing and have worked for others. So I have experience in business and working for others. And so that means you have to learn how to follow direction and actually work as a team in a lot of cases. I've worked on budgets for the unified government, over $330 million with them for the last several years. I have learned a lot, and none of us can know it all, I guarantee you. I am an issue-based person. So you bring me an issue, I'm going to work on the issue. I may not agree with you. Doesn't mean we're not going to work together. It means that I don't owe anybody anything, and no mayor tells me what to do, and neither does my minister. And if you don't believe me, come to church with me. So just thought I'd clear that up. And then collaboration is the big thing. Whether we like it or not, we can all have our own goals, and we want things to be the best we can for our community. But if we don't collaborate with those other people on that commission and with all the other people that are doing the work, we're not going to get anything done. All we're going to do is fight. And I would tell you that our commission has worked well together, even though we don't always agree. But we work well to find the best thing we can, and I'm proud to be part of that.
Okay. Elnora will ask the next question, and we'll start with Commissioner Philbrook.
Considering the complexities in our neighborhoods, District 8 and others, could the working relationship between the UG Commission and members representing the other mill levy entities be better or more progressive, and how?
I love that question. I want to know how we can do that. I would really like to see all of those entities actually sit down at a table together and talk about what they're going to charge on their mill levies. Because the government, we're only like 47-48% of the taxes. And we could work as a group, I think, a more concerted effort on using buildings together, getting organized as far as workforce and training, and dealing with kids being able to get to school safer. All of these things that we all care about. I think if we could sit down at a table and work in a regular manner and express what we can do, what each one of us can do, each entity, that we could work in a concerted effort. And I'm all for that, Elnora. Great idea, thanks.
Kenneth McLean.
Complicated question with a, I'm not going to call it a simple answer. Transparency, accountability, and integrity. Those are things that are seemingly far gone when you speak of politicians. If we all come to the table playing with the same deck, then we all should be playing the same game. In Wyandotte County, between these entities, there's been a lot of games being played. So when we're doing that, then no, there won't, we can't work together. There will be no collaboration because I'm worried about one man getting over on me. I'm worried about the other person making $1 more than I can. But when we do that, it doesn't hurt us in our pockets. It hurts the rest of us. We have to tear those walls down. We have to tear down the walls of doublespeak, of not being upfront and forthright. At the end of the day, all you have is your word. So if I can't trust our elected official to say this is what it is and this is why it is, if I can't trust you to say that yes, we truly are reducing your mill levy and not raising your appraisal rate, then no, we've got some issues there. So how do we start? We start with transparency, accountability, and integrity.
Okay. Brad Isnard.
I can tell you that I'm sure every mill levy entity in this county would be interested in sitting down at a table with the unified government and discussing those things. But no effort has been made to do that. That's something that I would like to change. There is room for that discussion. I think that one thing that may be a challenge to that, or has been in the past, is that funding comes from different places for some of those organizations. So it's not all mill levy that funds the school district, for example. But Mr. McLean brings up a good point when he says that we've got to trust that when the UG says that they're going to lower our property taxes, that they actually are. A 2 mil reduction as property values are soaring is not a decrease. I've heard that from at least a dozen people that have messaged me through Facebook angry about that issue. That's not me, that's the public that are upset because this is being touted as something to celebrate when we're keeping it flat at best. We do need tax reduction in this county. The people have been asking for it for decades, and it's been a campaign issue for every person who has run for the commissioner mayor for several decades. It's time to make good on the promises that have been made in the past, and we need a change in leadership to do that. Thank you.
Our next questions will come from Mary Rupert, and we'll start with Brad Isnard. Mary?
Yes, let's go into this property tax question in more detail. You've just talked about how you would like to have a property cut. How much would you like to see? And also, while you're at it, what effect do you think the Kansas property tax lid is going to have on your decision making on spending and tax reductions here in Wyandotte County?
Thank you. I don't believe that it's my position to make the decision ultimately on what tax reduction should mean to the public unilaterally. I think that's where communication with the public is so important. We've got to get our community organizations involved. If I was chosen to represent this district, monthly meetings with those community organizations would be something that I would truly push for. A town hall once a year and twice in election years is simply not enough. We need input from the public to ask them what services they find are most important, which ones they don't find that are important. Something that just came up in the last meeting that I watched of the budget workshops was the burying of the fiber optic cables for a new unified government network. And we're still discussing going forward with this plan after many members of the commission voiced concern over it. Many members of the public don't feel like it's an investment that we need to make now. Those are examples of areas where we could cut spending in order to reduce the mill levy more. We've also got the luxury right now of the Star Bond revenue coming in from the Legends and Village West. This is an opportunity to make an investment back in our people by reducing the tax levy and making up for it with that sales tax revenue. What portion of that we use depends, and it's going to be different each year as that money comes in. We can continue to cut. Now, what we are not going to do is do what the state of Kansas did and almost bankrupt ourselves. We have to be responsible with those cuts and meaningful with what we decide that we want to either end or change. Thank you.
Kendon?
Yes, sir. It would be easy to throw out some blanket number, percentage, dollar amount. That's easy to do. We have to evaluate, first of all, why it is so high. Why are your taxes so high? I don't think anybody really has a straight answer on that. Maybe Ms. Philbrook can answer why our taxes are so high, since she's involved in our budget process. We look at why they're so high, then we evaluate top to bottom. Do we need to spend $9 million or $5 million this year on burying power lines, or can we spend $2 million this year, $2 million next year? Spread that out. If we're going to do cuts, they need to be responsible cuts, because they need to be sustainable cuts, because each dollar is applied to a person's life and their livelihood. It's easy to say, yeah, we want to cut this and cut that, but then when we're going to miss those things when they're gone. It's easy to say, yeah, we're going to cut back on BPU linemen, but when it takes 3 or 4 days to get your power cut back on, we're going to say, wait a minute, I thought we were paying for that stuff. Well, no, we cut it. So this isn't something that we need to take an axe to. It's something that we need to take a scalpel to and surgically investigate each and every single department, from security to sewers to streets to beautification to parks and rec, which is still poorly underfunded. We need to take a microscope to everything, a scalpel to everything, and say, what do we need now? What do we need later? What can we do without? Thank you.
Commissioner Philbrook.
Oh, say the question again, because it's kind of, I want to hear exactly how you stated that.
Okay. Well, to follow up on some earlier comments, if you do support a property tax cut, please tell me how much, how much of a cut you would support, and also, what effect would the Kansas property tax lid have on your decision making on spending and tax reductions at our local level?
Well, first off, I'll hit the tax lid thing. We take it down, we can only bring it back up so much. So just remember, if you cut something, it's not coming back easily, especially since the new tax law. Now, moving on past that. As far as how much would I, that's the same thing as these gentlemen are saying. How do you know, how much to take off? But what I will say is that what's exasperating to me as a commissioner is I really have no control over what property values are. Those are determined by the state and the state regulations. And the reason the property values have gone up is because there's more demand for our property in Wyandotte County than there has been since 2005 or 6. And so people are paying 20% above asking price. And when that happens, our property values go up, and we don't have control of that. I wish I did, because I got double dinged. So I understand. And there's nothing we can do about that. The only control we have as commissioners is the mill levy and how much money we spend of yours and what we spend it on, okay? Every time I ask somebody what they want me to get rid of, there's no answer, because you can't pick one thing to get rid of. What I would say is that I agree with him that we have to do the scalpel thing, but we've already started that. We've started looking at every individual department and looking at them to do things more efficiently and effectively, and I'm proud of our commission asking that happen.
Now we'll move to closing remarks, and candidates will have 2 minutes, and we will start with Commissioner Philbrook.
Well, okay, so I really do appreciate the opportunity to have worked hard for you for the last 4+ years, and if you choose to reelect me, I'll do as much work or more if I can. And to say is that our communications have been much more transparent. We have added a whole lot more of YouTube, and we're trying to record everything, get it out there to you. I have been personally for community meetings well over 35 meetings in 1 year. I do not ignore the people. I'm at most of the community meetings with most of my areas, and I ask them and they talk to me. If people can find me, they don't have a problem doing that. So that is not a problem in my community. There are people that have not attended those meetings, not my fault, okay, because I was there. Workforce, we're working on that, as we said earlier. Leavenworth Road, excitement. The animal services are getting better. We're really working on that, and we got a lot of things going on. We got a coalition of groups came together to work with animal control, and that's a great thing, because that means it costs us a lot less money to get out there to corral dogs and do all that sort of thing. My priorities are to keep the transparency and communication growing, training up our workforce, and working with all of our active neighborhood groups and the school districts and all the colleges, because it makes a big difference. And I can't tell you that I can lower the taxes, because I'm not in control of the taxes. Thank you.
Kenneth McLean.
First, thank you to the panelists for your questions. Thank the audience for your time as well, and I won't take up too much more of your time. Wyandotte County, specifically District 8, what I'm here for is not just a title. It's not just to stand on a soapbox and rattle off a list of things that I should be doing anyway. What I'm here for is because I have a vested interest, the same as most of us do. It's time for us to turn the page and stop talking about things. We had listening tours and talks and everything else. It's time for us to get past talking and actually start implementing and putting things in place. It's easy to talk it, but it takes real effort to actually do it with purpose behind it. It takes real energy and real effort and real heart to do it with consistency and with drive and with determination. That way, when I see you in the grocery store, when my kids see you, when you see my kids and my wife out in the street, I don't have to tell you, oh, I've been meaning to call you. I'll give you my cell phone number. I can stand up right now. I'm about 6'2", pretty wide shoulders. I look a whole lot different than these other two people up here. If you can't pick me out of a crowd and say you can't find me, I'll come find you. So let's get to it. August 1st is where we start, and November 7th is where we finished. Thank you.
Brad Isnart.
Well, again, thank you to the folks in attendance tonight for taking time out of your busy schedule. It's very important that more of our public gets to hear these messages so that they are more informed. We have a tendency, especially after a pretty crazy election year last year to get so tied up in national politics that we forget so many important decisions that affect our lives are made right here in our communities at City Hall. That's why it's important that you know and understand the views of your candidate and that your candidate communicates with you. And that's something that's really very important to me, is to take the time to get feedback from the community before large decisions are made. I don't support reckless spending or bribing every business to come into the community anymore. The Legends of Village West have amassed what I would call an economic gravity of their own, and they are expanding at a rapid pace still on their own. Our job is to continue to pave the way so that that growth can continue eastward. And District 8 is next in line for that. But projects like the improvements to Leavenworth Road are important to help make that happen. Another thing that I support is our first responders. Having grown up in a family with law enforcement where that was so important, I know and understand that and take it very seriously. I would like to bring up that today is a very sad anniversary date. It's the anniversary of the death of Captain Dave Melton, the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department, who died in the line of duty. Captain Melton was my next door neighbor. And I just want to tell the family, if they're watching, that our neighborhood mourns with you. And if elected, I will do everything in my power to make sure that our first responders have the tools and funding necessary to keep that from happening to another young family. Thank you.
Let's give all the candidates a hand.